What's up, world? Welcome to my first ever podcast episode. Today we have a special guest. It's an honor to have him on, and you will see why shortly. So let's get right to it. 17 and a half years of service in the Air Force currently. He started off as enlisted, did 4 years as a survival instructor, later went on commissioning as an officer. He's very passionate about motivating and inspiring young airmen, soldiers, warriors, and guardians. He's also an endurance athlete with tons of knowledge in strength training, endurance training, and so much more. I can only scratch the surface for his introduction. But I would like to welcome Manny to the podcast. How are you doing today?
Hey man, that was great, dude. I'm like, who is that guy? Nah, thank you.
No problem, no problem. Thank you for taking the time to come on and speak. I truly appreciate it. I wanted to start off talking about your journey going from enlisted to being an officer. Could you share how that process was for you?
Yeah. There were a lot of things that just lined up, and I've come to accept that through my journey is like, it's hard sometimes to make a new path when things are sort of in line for you, and that was sort of how my enlistment was.
Mm-hmm.
So I was originally only a 4 year enlistee, so I had that going for me.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't have any college, so that was something I had to work with to commission. I had my brother, who was 2 years younger than me, go to college to play football when I was 2 years in the military. So there was like that motivation.
Yeah.
I didn't get a chance to go to college before enlisted because I grew up in a small town in Northern California and there just wasn't a lot of colleges nearby. So the military was sort of the first option. So I had all these motivational, really just to continue to go to school, not really the military.
Yeah.
And so I did enlist to go to school. I enlisted to get my GI Bill and hopefully go to college. 2 years in the military, I met my wife, and we were just talking, and I went to the academy to teach down there for a SEER, and I got to talk to the cadets down there and learn more about the officer side of the military.
Nice.
Then my wife mentioned that she did ROTC for a year at Washington State, and I didn't really know what that was at the time. And we started digging into that. And back then in the early 2000s, the
Mm-hmm.
route to become an officer, it was quiet. I
Yeah.
say that like you didn't know what to do. Just like it's weird. It's still like that today for a lot of enlisted people. They don't know the routes unless somebody either tells them,
Mm-hmm.
which is I think really the only way they find out. But for me, nobody really told me. I
Yeah.
just had this aspiration to go to college. And so I was like, okay. And then my wife's like, well, if you're going to go to college, why don't you become an officer and do ROTC? So I was like, okay. And so we looked for colleges in Washington that had ROTC, and Washington State had it. So I got out after 4 years, separated, enrolled in Washington State University as a freshman using my GI Bill for 4 years of college. I enrolled into ROTC program, which is a very simple way to get your degree and become an officer. Obviously, you have to put in the years to go to college, but
Mm-hmm.
that's just what I had time for. And then I was also a reservist at the same time where my wife was a reservist. So I was able to do that on the side while going to college, playing a couple years of football, did some rugby,
Nice.
worked a part-time job, tried to stay busy, and then lined it all up. Like that was my motto going through college was keeping my ducks in a row and getting them across the street. And my wife and I both knew that. We barely saw each other. She worked nights to help pay the bills at our apartment. I was up at 5 for workouts for football, then staying late for homework and film session. And then ROTC had some time in between there during the summer going to field training. I went back to field training again my junior year to teach combatives. Football, was super busy. School was busy.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so that's how I think your question was how and why did I become an officer? But the reason why was to lead. I wanted to lead. So yeah, that was really the motivation, and to get my degree and continue that journey.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Awesome. Awesome. I see you faced some tough challenges and you overcame them. Speaking of challenges, I see you're currently doing the 75 hard challenge. How many times have you done it? And do you mind explaining to people what that is for the ones who don't?
Yeah, so 2 years ago, I will just say I was in a normal spot in my life physically and
Mm-hmm.
mentally. I was comfortable in my job as a B1 Wizzo, comfortable with my position at work. I guess a comfortable husband, a comfortable father, where I just thought everything was going good until a friend reached out to me, and um, I work for a supplement company called First Form, and so their CEO created 75 Hard, and 2 years ago, I met all these people at a party they put on called Summer Smash, and they were all talking about doing it. And I looked around, I was like, man, I'm surrounded by all these people that are just like thriving in life. Like, if you don't follow the First Form community, some of those people are very motivated and dedicated and hardworking people. And I was like, oh my God, I need this. Because, sometimes the military, it's hard to find those communities within the military, especially if you have a job that's not active, or not physically demanding. And that's what I needed in my life. And so 75 Hard is a program created by Andy Farcella where for 75 days you do 5 simple tasks. You read 10 pages from a book, no Kindle or anything like that. It has to be like a personal growth book.
Okay.
So that also helped me in my challenges. You have to take a progress picture every day. You have to drink 120 ounces of water. You have to do 2 workouts, 45 minutes each. One has to be outdoors, and then they have to be about 3 hours apart. And then you have to be on a nutrition plan. And then you have no alcohol, no cheat meals. So the alcohol is a huge thing for me, being a flyer in the military, where it's sort of like, I don't know, bred into you, I guess. It
Yeah.
was it was different at the time for me to do it, but that was a challenge. And I look back at that time, and now I don't see alcohol as a need anymore. It's more of just I think I only drink like one drink a month. It's crazy now.
Yeah.
But yeah, you do those 5 things. And the nutrition is very open ended, because he doesn't try to make it structured. There's no meal plans, no cutting out food. For me at that time, it was tracking my macros.
Mm-hmm.
I've never done it at the time, so that was my challenge: hit my protein, tracking my macros, and my nutrition. My workouts were, he doesn't give you a specific workout. You choose it to make it hard for you. So obviously, I was doing my strength training because which I love and my background is. But the
Mm-hmm.
challenge for me was now, how do I move better?
Right.
So I started walking. Walking, I think, is one of the best forms of exercise and weight loss. So I just started walking 45 minutes with my family. That was a great bonding experience for my kids. My wife and I had gone walks around the neighborhood. Then I started jogging a little more. I started rucking a little more. Then I started running a little more. And then, if you've never heard of David Goggins, I think most of us have, I read his book at that time 2 years ago called Can't Hurt Me. And I tell everybody it's the worst book you can read because it proves that your life is, you're just not doing enough.
Yeah.
There's more we can do. And so I read that book and I was like, oh my gosh, like this endurance sounds pretty crazy, like it pushes your body mentally, but doesn't break it physically. Like I was pretty strong when I was 217 pounds. I was probably as strong as I could be without physically hurting myself. And
Yeah.
so the next challenge for me was endurance. I never ran, I never rode a bike, I was never a swimmer. And so I was like, hey, if I'm going to be hard, like this is it.
Oh
So
yeah.
I did that for 75 days. And the program is a year-long program called Live Hard. So the first phase is 75 hard, and then you take a break and you go into phase one, which is another 35 days of that with a couple more exercises like a cold shower, 10-minute visualization. And I think there's a couple more steps. And then there's another phase two, which is the same thing as 75 hard.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's phase three, which is the last phase in Live Hard program, which has a couple more extra steps, but it's intended to help you build habits to like change your life. And so that's why 75 days is 75 days. It's not a 21-day program where you can sort of battle through. You can't plan life in 75 days.
Right.
You can't be like, I'm just not going to do anything, and complete 75 hard. Like life's going to get in the way. Weather is going to change. Circumstances are going to change. And so that I did that, and it like opened my eyes to how far I can go in my life and where I can go. And so, yeah, I did that in January, March, April, June of 2021. And then I just started my endurance journey. And then I don't know if you have any more questions on that, but that's 75 hard right there. And I'm currently doing it right now again to lock in where I'm at in my life and in a career change, to get mentally and physically ready. And then I also have a bunch of people doing it with me. So that's giving me some motivation as well.
Gotcha, gotcha. That is awesome. I personally have not done the challenge, but I am going to start doing it real soon. One challenge that I am struggling with that I want to ask you for your advice, Manny, is on training. I ran my first half marathon last December. I ran it in 2 hours and 27 minutes, and I saw one tip you gave, which was to train in a non-optimal condition.
Yeah,
Which I've
yeah.
never thought of before, but it makes sense. Could you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I think there's a quote or a phrase by Tim Grover. He was the coach of Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant and Dwayne Wade, and he talks about people that are very successful. The championship or like winning is easy to them
Right.
because the journey they got there was so hard.
Yeah.
Like you want that championship game to be easy, and that's how I consider like events, right? So I want the race day to be easy. So
Mm-hmm.
I need my training to be pretty difficult and hard or non-optimal so that that day is successful. And what I mean by non-optimal is training when you're tired, right? So because usually on a race day, right, you're recovered, you're rested. It's usually decent weather because they plan it well. You're fed, and so you're gonna have those little victories. But to take advantage of it during your training, you're never gonna have that time.
Yeah.
And so you have to sort of get it, you have to get used to training in non-optimal conditions. So training when it's hot, if your race is going to be a little bit cooler, or training in the morning when you're used to training in the evening, maybe training after you lift, so your body's sore. And then for running, you can either change your tempo, change the distance, change the speed. That way, all of that doesn't catch you off guard during the race.
Yeah.
Let's say, for instance, it is hotter during the race, or you are sore, or it is, there's more people than you thought. You've already prepped for all that. And you don't get caught off guard. So, because sometimes it's easy to train when it's easy, right? Like it's
Yeah.
easy to plan your workouts when the coolest part of the day, or
Yeah.
only go for 3 miles and then maybe do nothing instead of do some arms or some legs before.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Gotcha, gotcha. That's awesome. With training always comes motivation, and I wanted to share this quote I saw from your page. It reads, "It's not about the finish line or top of the mountain. It's about the journey along the way. Good or bad, it's about remembering where you started, but also where you don't want to get back to." What does that quote kind of mean to you?
Yeah, for me it's huge, and I just made another post about it on my Facebook page with like my progress pictures, and I look at it as, everybody has a mountain they like to go to, and then they sort of they end there. But a lot of people that I'm really close to in my motivation world, we all know there's another mountain you can climb up to. There should always be another peak after you get to a peak, and that's sort of why I love endurance because it's never like achievable, right? Like I may do a half marathon, and I'm like, cool, there's that mountain, but in the distance, right, there's maybe that full marathon mountain, or maybe there's a triathlon mountain and you climb those mountains and you get there and you go to the next one. But when I talk about the journey,
Mm-hmm.
like I don't know, like I love the process of getting somewhere.
Yeah.
It's because that's usually more rewarding than the outcome. Because usually, races they're sometimes anticlimactic.
Yeah.
Because it's I don't know, it's just another run usually. So you're just like, cool, I did it, man, that was it, so you have to either embrace the journey, soak it in, and that keeps you motivated. And then when I always talk about where you started, a lot of people, when they do a race or they do some sort of challenge, they reach that peak and sometimes they go back because they think that's the end.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always have like, and there's a reason why I always share my progress pictures every Wednesday in my page. It's usually not for my team, it's for me, because I know with any little slip up or any little complacency or getting comfortable, I could be back there because it's not hard to gain weight. It's pretty easy, and
Yeah.
so that's why you have to enjoy the journey, understand where you came from, but know where you can go. Because the only reason I keep pushing myself is because, man, like, so my Instagram is not a like happy positive Instagram that for the people I follow. I follow people that are way more successful than me. And so some people they may consider that like demotivating or depressing to be like, oh, I'm following this guy that makes millions of dollars or does this. How can I do that? But for me, like when I follow people like Goggins or Nick Bear and all these hybrid athletes that are
Yeah.
very, Cameron Haynes or people like that, I'm like, dude, I'm coming for you, man. Like I am coming for them. And that keeps, instead of following people that are sort of the same as me or below,
Yeah.
to give me that false happiness. Like I log into my Instagram, I'm like, damn it, dude, Nick Bear's out there posting a 10-mile run looking jacked because he just got done doing a bodybuilding competition. I'm like, all right, let's do this, man. And that just keeps it going along the way.
Gotcha, gotcha. Man, that's awesome. That's awesome. So how many triathlons have you done before?
So I've only done one true half Ironman, and that's all I've done. Last year, when I completed my first marathon, January no January 2022,
Hmm.
January 1st, 2022, I did my first marathon just by myself in my town. I put on an event. And then right after that was sort of like, what's next, right? Like
Yeah.
I did pretty good on a half. A little bit before that, I did my marathon. I didn't do as good as I thought, but I completed it. And that's when I heard about an Ironman because my buddy was asking me about it. And I was like, I'm at a point in my life where I won't say no to really any physical event. I will. It sucks that I can't say no anymore because I know I'm going to do it. And so I started Googling Ironmans and I was like, like this half looks doable. The run I've done, right? This half marathon. I was like, I've never rode a bike. I've never really swam competitively, only swam for like my SEER test. And that was really it. I'm like, well, all right, let's see what we got. We got 6 months. So I was rucking a lot at the time, got a bike, hit the pool. And then for me, it was really just a challenge. And since then, I try to maintain that consistency of a half Ironman attitude. So like
Hmm.
my training right now is to allow me to be able to do a half Ironman like within a month. Let's say a friend were to call me back, hey Manny, I want to go do half Ironman. Can you come do it with me? And I'm like, and if I have the time and I already have the bike, I need to make sure I maintain that physicalness so I'm not caught off guard and I can be like, yeah, let's go do it. Same with my marathon training. I'm always prepped to run a marathon. Like one of my buddies a couple months ago was doing his first marathon in Tulsa. And I was like, hey, dude, I'll run it virtually with you. So I went out of my town in Sumter and found a trail and ran it
Hmm.
6 times to do a marathon for him. And so, like, I try to maintain that. And I wasn't training for marathon, I just maintain that capacity to suffer through one.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah, that's really the only triathlon I've ever done is that half Ironman in Boulder. Other than that, I just always ride, run, and swim.
Gotcha. Awesome. Awesome. What are your social media accounts where people can follow you at?
Yeah, so my Instagram is the underscore Manny underscore man. And then my TikTok is just Team Manny Fit. And then Facebook is just Manuel Lamson Jr. So those are those three, and they're pretty different. I tell a lot of people. So you'll see on my TikTok, it's really a lot of military leadership stuff I like to do. I've been throwing a lot more fitness on there because doing 75 hard, where I post every day, that sort of bumps that up. But I do primarily military leadership, my military story on there, because the military community is pretty big on TikTok. Honestly, it's
Yeah.
very large, and I like it. And there's some good role models out there, and I think I've seen a positive change in that like Miltalk community.
Yeah.
My Instagram is really my fitness journey. I've done some military on there, but my niche and the algorithm is pretty set towards fitness. So you'll see a lot of my coaching I do on there, my nutrition coaching, my macros, my meals. Once I get back to my family, my kids are on there tons, and then it's a lot of my journey as well. And then my Facebook, just like normal Facebook, just some
Hmm.
posts here and there when I travel. I dibble dabble on my fitness on my Facebook, but that one's more just socially. So.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Well, that's awesome, Manny. Man, thank you for being my first guest on my very first podcast episode. It was definitely an honor having you on today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. I look forward to where you go, man. Like, I look forward to watching them and keeping it going. And just thank you too, man. I love talking. It's always fun. So,
Gotcha. No problem. All right, I'll keep in touch. Talk to you soon.
yes, sir, man. Thank you.